Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Sandy Herrick.
Good morning, Denise. Francesco. How are you?
I'm doing great. How is it out there in California?
Oh my God, the weather is just absolutely beautiful. It's warm. It's in the 80s, high 80s and 90s. It's been I'm up in Northern California at the moment, and it's that end of the summer feeling. It is very dry, very brittle, very fire hazardy. But, God bless, knock on wood, everything is good, and it's beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. How you doing in Michigan?
I'm doing great. I'm broadcasting from up in the School of Sacred Studies this morning, so it's a little bit different.
Great.
I'd like to let everybody know that the chat room at Spreaker is open. Nikki Jorgensen and our own Lady Hawk are both in the chat room right now. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning, ladies, already.
Here we are. Well, it's beginning to get a little cooler in the evenings here in Michigan, and it's, hard to believe that soon enough we'll be rolling into autumn and then rolling into winter. And for some, the harsher time of the year. Reminded me this morning when I was outside watering all the gardens and the flowers and things about the fact that, for a lot of the animals, tough times are coming.
It's true.
It is. It reminded me of our show topic this morning. You and I always get together and talk about what do we want to talk about. And you said, let's talk about what it means to be tender, even in the toughest of times. What brought that to mind, Sandy?
Oh, my God. Well, when you asked, it was one of those places in my heart where, there's so much chaos going in our quote-unquote political world. There's so much chaos going on in the upheaval of our psyches, and there is a struggle in that subconscious for everybody right now of, where's peace of mind? What are we being provoked with in ourselves by seeing these emotions in America, these divides or these realities being uncovered and revealed? Everybody's stoked on some way, and I'm not a political person, so it's not about politics. It's about, for me, here is something that is affecting us. It's almost like being within, it's not just like, it is being in the family. Who are the characters in our family? What are the dynamics? Who's in charge? Who wants to be? When we have a clash of mind or a clash of heart, how do we have a dialogue? How do we find what we really are in ourselves? And to be able to represent it or bring it or feel it without the fear of being annihilated or eliminated or deemed crazy, insane, or less than. I can go on and on and on, but you know the direction I'm kind of feeling it. And within my own home, there's that beautiful learning curve in my dynamic with my own family. We have lots of differences, but how can we be tender with each other? How can we be really respectful when we need to be able to talk about things that represent the difference of who we are, even though we're a unit, without threatening the unit? That's what came up for me.
That's big.
That's big.
Because it's a very polarized world for a lot of people right now. You're either on my team or you're not on my team, And it makes it very difficult for some people to have a decent dialogue or at least a discussion rather than a shouting match.
Right.
And so why is it that you feel people are so polarized at this time, Sandy?
Well, I think that the veil is being lifted off of the obvious of, are we safe? Are we allowed to say what we really feel? Is there only one way to defend ourselves? Do you bully someone into the corner to defend yourself? Or do you have to wait to be bullied to all of a sudden spring out of the corner and defend yourself? Do you cower? Do you stand your ground? And all due respect for me, spiritually, energetically, and emotionally, this is a a phenomenal time to really be able to find out who you are as an individual and how to rep yourself as an individual so that you can stand for who you are or find out who you are and express who you are, because everybody's doing it. So you might as well get involved and explore yourself.
Right. I'm curious about something and thinking about the show today.
What's that?
Well, you lived during the time of the Vietnam War, which was also a very polarized time.
Yes.
Are there differences that you are seeing in this form of polarity and where people are in their own psyche? Are there similarities? Is it completely different? What does it look like from your perspective?
Well, interestingly enough, during the Vietnam War, it was even more of a hotbed because you had the Black Panthers that came up. You had Martin King that came up out of that. You had the hippies come out. You had women's rights bra burnings come out. You had John F. Kennedy be killed and his brother Bobby be killed. There was a radical explosion of many voices and the Vietnam vets. And it did go violent in many, many ways. And that violence is here, but not as massive. But I believe in my own soul, I can feel it cooking. I can feel, thank God there is a consciousness that says, let's have a peaceful demonstration. Let's have a voice that we can say what we are without the fear of being massively attacked for it. I mean, even the hippies were, that shot where the young person in Central Park put the daisy inside the gun of the military guard that was there because, and also Kent State. I mean, our shock at staying to the forefathers of those who were saying this is the way it has to be and it's the only way it can be, had to pass the torch. And it's no different within a family where, the father's the father, the mother's the mother, and we grow up, or the husband's the husband, the wife's the wife. Who has the dominant voice? And at some point, and this is inertia, at some point, the dominant voice activates something in the subservient that says, I don't have to be what you want me to be. And it's that low-grade scratch that starts to enter the psyche where we either decide we bow and kowtow or we stand up and risk it all. And in the Vietnam War, the consequences were radical because we found out that the war was dirty. That's where the psyche cracked. It was no longer a war for the people. It was a war for the financial gains of a few. And the soldiers are the ones that found out that they were being used. The people that were going off to be honorable and be of honor in their country and for their country, and to say to the loved ones, I will keep you safe. I will risk my life to keep you safe. There is a very powerful bond when someone offers you safety, and what you do in getting that safety is say goodbye to them. I hope you stay safe. Mm-hmm. And that's not out there anymore. It's all who's safe anywhere. Are we safe anywhere? And when that safety starts to wear away, or that pretense of safety, or the reality of the safety starts to wear away, we realize maybe we're obedient and not speaking up about who we are because we don't know how to protect ourselves. We don't know how to represent ourselves. But what happened in World War II, interestingly enough, is women went and did the men's jobs. And the men came home from the war, and the women were like, I'm not going to be docile anymore just because you're home. I had to find my voice.
I made a martini for you and one for me. So, yeah, here comes the TV dinner. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And So, it is that movement of the feminine, in all due respect, even within men, where they realize they don't only have to be warriors. They can be conscientious. Mm-hmm. They can think different. And women are asking them to talk to them rather than talk at them. That's what came out of all that. And now we're in a society 40 years, 50 years later that are saying, I want to continue the conversation. And we've gone to the top. We've gone to the top of the political ladder around the world. And America is very slow in acknowledging women have a voice. They also have a right to be at the helm. Mm-hmm. Other countries have done it for generations and thousands of years. So, it's time. Something in the tenderness of a woman doesn't mean we have to back down. Something in the tenderness of a man doesn't mean he's conceding. It means we're involving each other's considerations and aligning on a very different level. And I'm watching the struggle of it make that tide turn. And like any change, it takes change. And it threatens the old guard. How are you experiencing it? I mean, your father was a military person. Mm-hmm. Your inner strength comes from having to be an independent human being.
Absolutely, yes. My father was a Vietnam veteran. He was a career military man. And, he taught me to be independent. He taught me to be strong. He didn't necessarily teach me to be tender because that wasn't allowed in our household. And so it's something that I've had to learn to be, or learn that it's okay, because when you're taught not to be, or that's a weakness if you are tender, and there's punishment involved in showing tenderness, it's something that we have to grow into. And for a lot of people, that's going on right now. Rather than a shouting match, it's how do we become still for a moment and listen to another person's point of view and where that point of view comes from. Sometimes being tender just means that we give up being so present that we're unwilling or unable to hear the other person's pain in their statement, their history in the way that they feel, their ancestry in the way that we feel. So sometimes quiet can be a wonderful form of getting tender.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's that beautiful thing that you're talking about of how do we not get deemed weak? Mm-hmm. Tenderness is not weakness. Tenderness is not just sexuality. Tenderness is not, okay, I'm not going to fight. I know in my tenderness that there is a place inside me that actually, because I'm tender, there's something inside me that will put the innocent behind me, even in myself, and protect it, while whatever's inside me needs to stand up to identify it needs to be protected. And what that means to me, so that everybody's clear, is that there are many levels of my own psyche that have been traumatized, or, there have been times where I wanted to say something to a lover or a relationship or someone, and I would lose my voice. Literally, I would quiver in my voice, knowing the truth of what I wanted to say and the way I was feeling was captured energetically. I knew what I needed to say or wanted to say or hoped I could say or they would figure out. And it would be energetically trapped between my heart and my throat. And because of the way that I was brought up and manhandled or beaten or, told shut up, there was that fear of, if I tell the truth, I'll lose the person I love. Or I'll lose who I am because they'll never love who I am, rather than who I was almost, I don't want to say I was pretending, but I was being in order not to offend. You understand that difference?
Absolutely.
And it's so important to know that, we may have to be something so that we are experienced to belong and be tender to someone by not offending them by being who we are.
Mm-hmm.
And that quiver, I had to learn how to even say, I can hardly speak. I'm so scared of the truth. And then I misrepresented myself. I frustrated the relationship and would lose it anyhow. Because the truth wasn't in the room. The fear was. The fear of truly being honest and loved at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
How have you experienced that, Dana?
Well, for me, the word tender has always been equated with weakness. And people often say to me, because I like being a mom, and I am a mom to many, many people. So in my mothering, I'm very, very tender, and at the same time, very firm.
Right.
But, as you know, there are a lot of people who call me mom. And right. I love that. I love that I'm looked at as nurturing. I'm a very nurturing person most of the time, but I'm also a realist in my nurturing and in my tenderness. But in living my life, my tenderness shows up in my quietness, because I'm actually a very quiet person. Mm-hmm. So for me, allowing space or being the observer rather than somebody who has to interject my opinion about everything, learning to be quiet. I didn't actually have to learn that. That is part of who I am, so I have to say that. But to allow people the space to express. I love the human condition in that I enjoy listening or understanding somebody's story. Not that I want to hear it over and over again, as you say, 1,000 times, because they're not doing their work. I don't mean that. But I do love traveling and understanding the stories and the history and the ancestry. And for a lot of people, tenderness is when somebody shows up at the door or in their lives and says, tell me who you are and how you got to this place. For a lot of people, that's tenderness. For some people, the tenderness is for the first and only time in their life hearing that God loves them no matter what. That's a huge place of tenderness, because for some people, they grow up in a religion that is so rough and tough and strict and stern that they're never taught that at the core of who they are, or the source of their being and becoming, there's love. And that they are loved, and that the creator of the universe loves them no matter what. So there are a lot of places where we're taught that we have to be a soldier, or we have to be harsh, we have to be tough. Learning to be tender sometimes takes a crisis.
There's that beauty of the story. I agree with you. One of the greatest things in my counseling business, and, first and foremost, being intuitive, second, being a listener, and third, being one who can kind of put the puzzle together in words so that when there's a dialogue, people hear what it is they didn't know was happening. And all of a sudden they comprehend it. It's like, oh my God, that's it. And to hear and to be able to hold the space for someone to tenderly express who they are. Normally it comes when the overwhelm or the complication of the frustration or the sense of I'm lost within my own world. Who am I? You're absolutely right when, well, how did you get here? Who got you here? So that we can find out when the decision in the psyche of someone, in all due respect, the tenderness of the innocent part of someone said, I need a hero inside me to figure this out. And the survivor kicks in. The survivor has an identity burst. And then we become something that champions ourselves, or we develop a character that can protect the innocent and the one that doesn't know how to represent itself or has been told you can't exist. Mm-hmm. And mostly people have been told, exactly like you said, your tenderness can't exist because you're too sensitive.
Mm-hmm. That's what Catherine Lady Hawk is bringing up in the chat room. She's saying, I've always been too tender and hid myself a lot due to being teased growing up.
Yeah.
What's too tender? What's too tender, Sandy? That's based on the opinion of another, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I just got the goosebumps on my goosebumps right there. Uh-huh. That's the cause of 90% of all the strife in the world, is someone's opinion of you dominates who you are, because we want our core desire is to belong. Our core desire is to be included.
Yes.
And that's primal. You know, that when we're born, we need something to feed us. We need something to keep us warm. So our very primal instinct is to belong. And when that tenderness is threatened with, oh my God, I'm held tenderly, I'm cradled tenderly, I'm fed tenderly, there's that beauty of knowing that there is a right to exist. Really a right to exist. I can be here. I can feed. I can open my eyes. I'm given a chance to look. That's literally in that nurturing. And it's amazing what happens if that nurturing does not get imprinted on us. Then you kind of have to toughen up, or you have to, don't fret, because you're going to disturb somebody, and if there's a disturbance in the force, will they want you? And to be too tender, I need a coffee. To be too tender can also be the problem of, are you learning how to be a spokesperson for yourself? Or is what you're doing being tender to someone, hoping they'll be tender to you? That's a slippery slope. And yet, my tenderness as a child out in the woods, and I'm sure, there's that place for all of us, of, I loved being alone. I'm one of 9 in a family. I liked being alone because I didn't have to protect myself from the noise or the volume of just being in a family. And my tenderness was expressed to the animals. My tenderness was expressed to nature. And I learned that I could have, and this is very primal, that I could survive without having to be something for somebody else. And, that, where do we learn to strike out in that? I belong to something, but I don't have to be what they want me to be to belong. Alone time really, really develops that. I can hear that place inside my heart with, I know I can isolate in a heartbeat, but I also know that in my quiet, I find out who I am and then go out and represent that. And the tenderness that I need to, how do we be tender to ourselves? Let's go there. If we're only tender to other people, do you realize we actually frustrate people at times? That's mirroring to people that they are more kind than they are. And that is where, what happens when I'm so tender that somebody starts to reject my tenderness. Mm. They want to see a backbone. They want to see something. Literally, I've been told, you're too nice, Sandy. You're too nice. And I said, what do you mean I'm too nice? Well, they wanted a little edge to come up to. They wanted something to stand up and be feisty. Hold your own. Hold your own. Mm-hmm. How do you experience the difference in that with inside yourself or other people?
Well, I've been told that I'm too holy, that I'm too religious, I'm too spiritual, and sometimes all of that is equated with the same kind of a thing. You're too nice. And on the other hand, as a quadruple Scorpio, there are times when people will say to me, holy. That's a different kind of holy you got going on there.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Could you tone that down a little bit? I don't think that I'm an overly tender and nice person. I try to have balance with it. But honestly, that is something that comes with age and experience, I believe. Because for some of us, and I know you've done this as well, trying to be everything for everyone or someone so they don't have to figure out how to be it for themselves. That is a slippery slope. Here, let me take care of that for you. Let me grow for you. Let me protect you from your growth. A lot of parents do that.
Right.
And they don't want their children to grow through experience, through the rough edge. But I try to have some balance there. But as a Scorpio person, as a military brat, most people will say to me that they know that I'm a kick-ass broad.
Right.
That I am a warrior woman. And then that sets me to thinking, geez, maybe I need to tone it down a little bit, or I need to find that place of tenderness. Clearly, I'm not there. But I also believe that, again, it's the opinion of others. It's the thought of others. I know for myself that I'm both. You know that I'm both.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think when we have judgment, which is a very critical situation, it depends on who's judging us.
Right.
Is it someone's opinion we care for that is judging us? How do we react? If it's someone who we don't care for, how do we react? Is it a threatening? We were at I had said a story away situation that tenderness is also not throwing shame.
I like that. With that, Sandy, we are at the top of the hour, and you and I are together, the last Wednesday of the month, looking deeper. Everybody,
yes, we are.
Sandy has a brand new website. It is beautiful. It is Sandra Harrick, HARRICK.com. Check it out. It is gorgeous. But with that, Sandy, have a beautiful sunny day down there in California.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for listening. We do wax on, and I appreciate you being there. Have a great day and be tender, especially to yourself.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye-bye.